Hey, everybody, welcome in. We've got something very exciting for you. It is a podcast series brought to you by StokKon+Braverman. They are attorneys at law located in Broward County, Florida. This particular podcast is called Therapy or Divorce, and that can be found on therapyordivorce.com. Great place to catch all the podcasts as well as additional resources. I'm Bruce Silverman. Today we have two amazing guests with us. Hanit Simon is an attorney at StokKon+Braverman. Not only is she an attorney at Stock Law, but she is also a family law attorney. So that makes it absolutely ideal for her to be on this podcast. We also have Donny Frank. He is a marriage and family therapist, and he is also an author. So welcome to you both.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
I am going to start the two of you off just simply asking you to both give about 15 or 20-second overview on who you are and how you got to your profession.
I am a family and matrimonial lawyer. I'm licensed to practice in the state of Florida, and I have been handling family and matrimonial law proceedings for the past 10 years. We do anything and everything family law. So from divorce, paternity cases, modifications, prenups, postnups, domestic violence actions, adoption cases, you name it, anything that falls under the family law courts.
Okay, and I'm Donny Frank, a marriage and family therapist. I work out of New York, and it's really I'm very passionate. How I got into this is essentially very family, grew up with some very strong family values. I believe in the centrality of family, and it's incredible to be involved in helping people get married, stay married, have great marriages, and make a difference into the world. So, but they come from all stages. Either they're coming, we'd like more people to come to improve the good product they already have. Unfortunately, sometimes people come at the very last minute when they want to save something that has already been damaged greatly. But either way, we're open to people at all stages of their marriage.
So, Donny, I think you just gave the perfect segue. Stay or leave. Mm-hmm. What are the factors when a couple comes to you and says, we're having issues, we're considering filing for divorce? What's the conversation that you have with them?
That's a great question. Of course, it varies. There are a lot of people coming at describing different kinds of problems. The conversation, I guess, could envelop. Well, actually, Hanit, maybe you can help me out with this. When they come to you and they're actually made the decision to divorce, what are they telling you? And I'll come back and explain maybe some of the roots or the root causes of what they come for, but what are they telling you when they show up to?
Yeah, absolutely. So we get all kinds of reasons. Typically, as a divorce attorney, family lawyer, I wear multiple hats. They come in and they'll tell me things. One of the first conversations I'll have with them, though, is, have you considered counseling? Because our standard, at least in the state of Florida, is whether the marriage is what we call irretrievably broken, broken beyond repair. And so the question is it possible initially to repair this marriage, and have they attempted to do so? And so they'll come in, and that may be an initial conversation. And in the course of having that conversation, they may tell me reasons why or why not they think the marriage may be repairable. And so we do engage in that conversation. We have all kinds of concerns. I mean, I can create a list from, mental health concerns, infidelity, financial hardships. We have cases, of course, involving abuse. There are different ages and stages of life and issues that arise. And we have, just an overall lack of compatibility that people sometimes mention. So there's all sorts of reasons. And so for my purposes in family law, I like to see, well, are they decided? And if they're not, then I may turn it back over to you, Donny, and say, maybe you want to work with the therapist and see, are you truly decided? Is there a possibility of reconciliation here?
It's interesting you say that when they get to a point, I guess Florida says that it's kind of like broken beyond repair. So actually, one of the things that when couples do come at that state, to me, like I said, more like not the ones who are looking for improvement, but the ones who feel like they're down and out, and this is their last chance. They'll say something like, "This is our last stop before the lawyer." And for me, at that point, the goal really is to give them almost like to give them to discover a pulse. Sometimes they feel there is no hope, but if there's some way to be able to, through 1 or 2 sessions, to have them discover that the possibilities, that there is a possibility. And one of the ways, there are a lot of ways of doing that, to kind of discover a pulse, even if it's very faint, but that means that the patient's still alive, and then you can resuscitate it. One of the ways that I usually tell couples, one of the messages I tell couples, is that, with exception, of course, because there are certain red flag, certain lines that may have been broken that really do make it broken almost beyond repair. But I say is don't get divorced until you've met with a communication specialist, because sometimes the lack of communication can spiral so badly out of control that, if you can have one conversation that's different than what you've had the last 20 years, that could oftentimes be the pulse we're looking for. And then, of course, there's a lot of, resuscitating to do once you do find the pulse. But when they find a pulse, then there's hope.
It's interesting that you use this analogy pulse, and you're suggesting in a way that the marriage has a life, which is funny because in my business, I often think of it this way as well. So I often think that the marriage has a birth. It was born on a certain day. It has a life. And unfortunately, we don't want it. We don't go into it typically with this, intention at all. But at times then it does have a death. And so I say in my career, I don't handle balloons and flowers, but if we are at that point where unfortunately it is like the death of the marriage, then that is where I usually, find my clients and I take them through that process. So if there is still that pulse, as you say, I would, very much strongly encourage the client to consider therapy at that point. So I love that. That's a great analogy.
Yeah, actually, I like the fact. Well, I don't know if that makes you the Undertaker, but I don't know how that plays out.
Yeah.
But okay, that's all important. But it's actually encouraging to hear. I mean, even for myself, being part of this podcast is exciting because, people don't often hear lawyers say things like, if you can make it work, let me move you back to therapy. It's one, I guess, intuitive might think the lawyer wants it to die so they can bury it.
Counterintuitive, but that is, it's not that we're pushing, for this. And even during the process, at times I will make referrals back to family therapists, for different reasons. And as you mentioned, communication is one of the strongest, reasons for people, even if they are divorcing, to go to therapy to better their communication skills, especially with children. So
folks, I think this is a great place to show you a video right now and get your reaction from a therapy standpoint and from a legal standpoint to the conversation that this couple has. So let's take a look at that right now.
Stacy, it's your call, but I just want you to know I'm a new man. I'm not that guy anymore. I've changed.
I got news for you. I never wanted you to change. I didn't. I want you to be the man that I married. I'm done.
Stacy, wait. Please.
Thoughts on what we just saw?
I mean, a lot. This is, brings up. This actually has a lot of parts to it. I mean, in fact, just to segue from what we said before about communication, one thought comes to my mind is, she wanted him to be the man that she had married, and I don't know what he's been doing. Gus, we have no background to this story. I don't know what he's been doing to be able to try to get back into the relationship. But was there a miscommunication there? he's trying to become one person. Did she ever communicate to him what it was that she wanted him to be? Was he kind of doing a lot of guesswork, which unfortunately does happen a lot of times in relationships? They're trying to be somebody that the spouse doesn't really ask them to be, and they're wondering why they're not getting credit for all the work. So on the one hand, I see here, another example of possibly that there was some kind of miscommunication. That's one time. A lot of feelings coming out of this one, but that's one. I mean, I don't know, Hanit, what do you think?
Yeah, it's a very emotional clip, first of all, and there's probably a lot to unpack just in this, small segment here. But I think that it seems, at least under the surface, underlying their communication issues may be a breakdown in the trust. So that's something there that we often, see in family law, is that there is a lack of communication. And if they were able to better communicate, maybe they could work to get to the underlying issue, whatever that may be. And we don't know from this clip, but if there is an underlying trust issue, can it be repaired is really sometimes the issue. And so in a case like this, is it just, is it communication? Is it trust? Have they attempted to work through this? In my world, when one party's done, the other may not necessarily be, but the courts will proceed in that situation, in that scenario where, unless both parties are really interested in looking to repair and reconcile, the courts will move the case forward if there is a case pending. But from my perspective, if I sense that there is something there that could be explored, again, whether it's communication to move them forward in the best possible direction, and if that entails divorce, or if there is this opportunity to see if they can repair, that may be one way or the other an opportunity for therapy while a divorce is pending, or not. So.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned trust, and obviously, if there's no trust, communication is very, very problematic. But it's interesting. He also says, I'm a different man, and he wants her to trust him on that. And we've heard that so many times, like, I'm different, but nothing speaks more than showing evidence of change. And we don't know if he's just saying, trust me again, that I'm going to be different, that I am different. A lot of times we want them to trust, but you have to build trust. So we don't know if he actually demonstrated actual changes to show, even though she says it wasn't what she wanted, but I'm just pointing out that his comment, we also hear a lot, but you can't just say it. You have to kind of back it up.
Right. And that's interesting that, Donny, that you're mentioning, trust takes time, right? To rebuild a relationship, if that's a possibility, does take time. So in the family law world, if a case has already been initiated, we do have, deadlines that are imposed by the court. And so a family lawyer working with a client who's going through this process can seek a stay. So if it's, an agreement that the parties attempt to reconcile and they're going to therapy, there are times in my practice where I do seek a stay of the proceedings so that we don't have these, these court deadlines. And we really oftentimes do need that to give the parties a proper opportunity without the court, breathing down their neck, so to speak, to allow them to see if this is a possibility. And that does take time.
I want to throw a monkey wrench in this conversation. We saw the video where they weren't on the same page. The conversation the two of you just had was about if they are on the same page. So I want to wrap this segment up with they're not on the same page. One wants to be married, one wants the divorce, and what role each of you play in that scenario. And I'm going to say ladies first on this one.
So if, assuming from this segment then that there was no reconciliation, no pulse, as Donny put it, which I like, I'm gonna take that one into practice with me, I think. But I think at that point, then, it's moving forward, and there are different ways, assuming it's a divorce action, there are ways in which people can resolve outside of court, their pre-suit settlements that they can make, or they can go ahead and file. If they're still some hope, I suppose you could say, since we do not have a formal separation process in the state of Florida, there is also the opportunity for what's called a postnuptial agreement, where they can put into place in a contractually binding agreement what would take place in the event of any later divorce if they're not really truly at that point yet. So there are a lot of different ways. We also have what's called a collaborative divorce process that is a statutory type of process that allows people to work well together while they're going through with a mental health professional to aid them through the process. So even if that is taking place in my world, especially where, as I think I mentioned earlier, the parties may have minor children or dependent children, they need to be able to communicate. They need to be able to co-parent in most instances. So again, even if they're going through the divorce process, I would strongly encourage therapy, because they need to learn how to communicate as best as possible for the sake of their child or their children. So, Donnie,
Yeah.
have you experienced, therapy with couples who are going through this process or have decided at that point they're going to go to divorce?
Well, there is definitely a need, like you say, that even if they're going to get divorced, they're still going to stay. I mean, if there's kids, they still have to co-parent their children, and it definitely is in the benefit of the children that they have some ability to communicate and have stability as they make decisions and whatever it is. So that's certainly important. But it's interesting because you say, like, you could put a stay on the proceedings. And I've had situations, one comes to mind specifically a few years back where one of the spouses, I won't identify which spouse it was, but said, look, I'm filing for divorce, and it takes time, for one step after the other. So if the therapy catches my attention, I'll stop it. But right now I have one foot in therapy, one foot in divorce. Now, I don't know about other marriage therapists out there, but I can't do work with a couple like that. I say, look, you're either in, and when I say in, I don't mean in the marriage. I mean, are you in the work to try to make the marriage work, or are you already, in the process of bringing it to termination? But it can't work that way when you're doing work, even if it's that's such a remote chance, like whatever it is, such a remote chance for it to work. But if you're working, you're working, and if you're not, you're not. To me, that's a dividing line. So yeah, I mean, so that, if they did start it and they feel like, okay, maybe we're going to give a little bit of work to this, then stop, come back. You can always come back to it, or any other arrangements that you had mentioned before. But yeah, to me, it's like you're either working on it or not. And it could be that one person, like in this video, she says, I'm out, I'm done, or whatever word she used. And it looks as if that's that the marriage is over, because you do need two people to maintain a marriage, to continue a marriage. They both have to be contributing to the pulse. Although I don't know if she's necessarily out. Doesn't always mean they're out when they say they're out. But if she's really out, then she's out. Game over.
We have so many great conversations planned in this series alone of therapy or divorce. I think this is a perfect time for us to wrap up today. Hanit Simon, she is, as we said before, family law attorney with StokKon+Braverman, and Donnie Frank is a marriage and family therapist out of New York. Donnie, if you want to tell the folks where they can get your book, Dynamic Duo.
Actually called The Making of a Dynamic Duo, and it's on Amazon. It should be accessible to almost anybody. It's an easy read. I mean, one of the readers had mentioned to me they feel like it's simple, but yet they said something, I don't know what they were, brilliant or something like that. But really, I tried to pack in really critical lessons in a very digestible, easy form, because people are busy. They don't have so much time to read books so much anymore today. But that's it. Amazon.com, or wherever country you happen to be in.
Hanit, Donnie, thank you so much. I'm Bruce Silverman. Thanks for being with us. We'll see you next time on Therapy or Divorce. Don't forget, you can go to therapyordivorce.com and catch all the podcasts, as well as resources as to the conversations we're having here. Thanks so much to all of you for watching and listening. Thanks for StokKon+Braverman to sponsor this podcast series, and we'll see you next time.
Great. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
All the best.